Hey gang, as always I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Today I'd like to read to you something I wrote a while back that kind of gives you an inside look as to how my brain works on a daily basis. It's called A Coffee Can Will Suffice. The answer to 56 across in Sunday's crossword was obvious to me. It was Mort. So I filled in the 4 spaces and moved on to the next clue. But that's not the point of the story. It's where Mort led me, and it's this. I told you I was dehydrated. I do this kind of thing all the time. That is, when I'm not talking to myself out loud or attaching a song lyric to something someone just said, again, out loud, and often to the annoyance or outright chagrin of those with whom I'm keeping company at the time. Confused? Probably, but again, that's not the point. Confusion is simply the byproduct of this exercise. You see, I routinely find myself drifting along on spontaneous streams of consciousness which lead me to connect one thing to another until I reach my destination, or capsize. Joan knows what I'm talking about, because often she's the victim of this little game, the person left to figure out how the discussion about a flat tire could lead me to start talking about wild rice or puffy winter coats. The short answer is, well, that's just the way my brain works. The long answer probably isn't worth the time or effort. Nonetheless, let me try. The crossword puzzle to I told you I was dehydrated equation, in reality, is a simple and fairly straightforward example of my thought process. Sunday morning, I came across a clue in the crossword puzzle that reads as follows. Good name for a funeral director? I scanned the matrix to find it was a 4-letter word. To make things easier, I already had the M from 56 down. So the answer dropped right into my lap, and I completed the remaining 3 squares, O-R-T. Immediately, something clicked in my brain, much like one's trick knee might act up when bad weather is imminent. Instead of going on to the next clue, my brain rerouted itself, and I could feel it being swept into the stream of consciousness. I wasn't afraid. I've navigated these turbulent waters many times. Weirdly, it's a comfort zone for me, so when I find myself drifting downstream, I just go with the flow. In this case, with a launch point of Mort, my brain immediately went to mortuary, which led me to death, which made me think of funeral, which ironically made me think of fun, which took me in turn to sport, because sports are fun most of the time, which interestingly led me back to Mort because it rhymes with sport, and then Mort led me back to the original references to mortuary, death, and funeral. This took me to cemetery, which spurred thoughts of headstones. And that led me to I told you I was dehydrated. Simple, right? Let me offer some assistance. Whenever a discussion arises of what I want inscribed on my headstone, and by whenever I mean once, and when I refer to discussion, it's possibly one I was having with myself, I say, I want mine to read, I told you I was dehydrated. But then I think about headstones and cemeteries again and realize that I don't want to be buried at all. That's maybe more information than you want, but I have to admit that even talking about streams of consciousness tends to cause them. No doubt already noticed. In other words, in my case, headstone really means urn. And by now, I'm thinking about how urn rhymes with turn, which is also a bird, spelled T-E-R-N. Which reminds me that the birds, spelled differently than the tern kind of bird, sang a song titled Turn, 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 which was taken from the Old Testament. Ecclesiastes, I think. And that leads me to think about how so many people have Bible passages inscribed on their headstones, or urns, as the case may be. Then I realized something else I said during the discussion, possibly with myself, of what do you want inscribed on your headstone? I don't think I want a traditional burial or an urn. I think I indicated that I just want my ashes placed in a coffee can, with a tight sealing lid, of course. And the inscription can be made in magic marker on a piece of tape. Then, whomever is lucky enough to take possession of my coffee can should simply put it in a garage or shed where it's safe but away from others, kind of like how many currently feel about me. So, that's how it works. How 56 across turns, not turns like the bird, but the turn, turn, turn kind, like the birds, but not the birds like the turn. Turns into, I told you I was dehydrated. Problem is, now I can't get that song out of my head, and it's quite possible you can't either. To everything, turn, 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 there is a season, turn, turn, turn. Think about that for a while. Have a good day.